The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched across 3 kilometers of floating crystal platforms. 17 alien species sat in their designated sections. Their bodies ranged from tall forms to masses of living gas contained in energy fields. Some had existed for millions of years. Others had joined the collective only a few centuries ago. For 6,000 years, this council had ruled over 400 star systems. They had never known fear. They had never faced a true challenge. Until now. The massive doors at the far end of the hall opened slowly. A single human walked through them. General wore the simple black uniform of Earth's United Defense Force. No medals decorated his chest. No weapons hung from his belt. He was 63 years old, and his hair had turned gray in the years since the invasion. He walked alone across the crystal bridge while thousands of alien eyes watched him in complete silence. The High Speaker, a creature of blue scales and 4 arms, rose from his elevated throne. His voice echoed through translation devices that filled the entire chamber. You come before this council as a representative of a conquered species. You will show proper respect. General continued walking. His boots made soft sounds against the crystal floor. He passed delegation after delegation without glancing at them. He did not stop until he stood at the center of the speaking platform. Then he looked up at the assembled aliens with eyes that held no fear. "Conquered," he said quietly. "Is that what you believe happened?" Laughter rippled through several sections of the council. The delegation, beings of pure energy housed in mechanical shells, buzzed with amusement. They clicked their mandibles in what passed for mockery among their kind. Even the silent, plant-like creatures who rarely showed emotion rustled their leaves with contempt. The High Speaker raised one of his 4 hands for silence. Your planet was subdued in 17 standard cycles. Your military forces were scattered. Your governments collapsed. Your people now serve the collective. What word would you use, human? General clasped his hands behind his back. He stood perfectly still for a long moment. When he was young, before the invasion, he had been a history teacher. He had spent his life studying how civilizations rose and fell. Now he understood those lessons in a way no book could ever teach. You invaded our home, he said in a voice that carried to every corner of the vast hall. The words hung in the air like a physical weight. Something in the way he said them made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. The gaseous beings have contracted slightly within their containment fields. We have invaded many homes, the High Speaker replied dismissively. Yours was unremarkable, a small world on the outer edge of an average galaxy. Your species had barely achieved interstellar travel. You posed no threat to anyone. That is true, General agreed. We were peaceful, we were curious. We wanted to explore the stars and meet other civilizations. When your fleet appeared above Earth, many of us felt hope. I remember that day. I was teaching a class about ancient Rome when the ships blocked out the sun. My students ran to the windows. They were smiling. They thought perhaps we had found friends among the cosmos. He paused and looked slowly around the chamber. His gaze moved from species to species, as if memorizing each face. Instead, you burned our cities. You killed billions of our people in the first week alone. You enslaved those who survived. You took our children and separated them from their parents. You destroyed our history, our art, our culture. Libraries that held knowledge from thousands of years were turned to ash. Museums were looted and emptied. Everything we had built over 10,000 years of civilization, you tried to erase. Such is the way of expansion, said the representative, its mechanical voice cold and precise. The strong consume the weak. This is the natural order of all things. Sentiment has no place in the growth of empire. General turned to face the directly. Is it? Tell me, honored representative, how many species has your collective conquered in its history? 347, the answered proudly. All now serve the greater purpose of galactic unity. And how many of those species ever fought back? truly fought back, not just in the first days of invasion but afterward. For years, for decades, how many refused to accept defeat even when defeat seemed certain? Silence filled the chamber. They did not respond. None, General said softly. The answer is none. Every species you conquered eventually accepted their fate. They submitted, they integrated, they forgot what they once were. Within a few generations, they could barely remember the names of their old heroes. He stepped forward to the very edge of the speaking platform. But not us. Never us. The high speaker's scales rippled with irritation. Your resistance movements have been crushed repeatedly. Your hidden colonies have been discovered and eliminated. Your so-called freedom fighters die in their hundreds every cycle. You have accomplished nothing but extending your own suffering. Have we accomplished nothing? General asked. He reached into his pocket and removed a small device. It was simple technology by collective standards, barely more advanced than a communication unit. He pressed a button on its surface. Throughout the chamber, holographic displays flickered to life. They showed images that made several council members gasp in shock. Warships hung broken in the void of space, their hulls torn open like paper. Command stations crumbled into dust. Entire fleets drifted lifeless through asteroid fields, dark and silent. These images were taken over the past 3 standard cycles, General explained calmly. Your 7th Fleet destroyed near the nebula. Your 9th Fleet ambushed in the Orion Gap. The processing station above Rigel IV, which took you 2 centuries to build, gone in a single night. The breeding grounds on the moons of all destroyed. Impossible, the high speaker hissed. Our forces are invincible. No conquered species could accomplish such things. You lie. Could what? General interrupted. Could learn to fight, could adapt, could take the technology you used against us and turn it into weapons you never imagined. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You made a mistake when you invaded Earth. You made the same mistake that every enemy in human history has made. You assumed that defeating us once meant defeating us forever. He pressed another button. New images appeared. Human soldiers in advanced combat armor stood before burning alien installations. Human warships, sleek and deadly, emerged from hidden shipyards carved into asteroids. Human scientists worked on weapons that the known laws of physics. Children trained in combat techniques that combined every martial tradition from Earth's long history. For 23 years we have been watching, learning, building. You thought we were broken. You thought we had accepted our place as servants and slaves. But every human you forced to work in your factories was memorizing their designs. Every human you made clean your ships was studying their systems. Every human child you tried to educate in your ways was secretly being taught in ours. We passed our language through whispers. We kept our stories alive through songs that sounded like prayers to your gods. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Voices shouted over one another in dozens of languages. Several representatives began calling for immediate military response. Others demanded to know how this had been hidden from their intelligence services for so long. The screamed accusations at the security forces. General waited patiently until the noise died down. When he spoke again, his voice was harder than before. You asked me why I came here today. You assumed I came to beg, to negotiate, to plead for better treatment for my people, perhaps to offer information about our resistance in exchange for small mercies. He shook his head slowly. I did not come to beg. I came to deliver a message. He looked directly at the high speaker. In exactly 12 standard hours, the human resistance will launch simultaneous attacks on 47 strategic targets across collective space. We will cripple your communication networks. We will destroy your fuel processing stations. We will liberate the prison worlds where you keep our people. And this will only be the beginning. You cannot succeed, the high speaker said, but his voice wavered slightly. You are too few. You are too weak. We have armies that number in the trillions. We were weak, General agreed. When you first came to our world, we were divided. We fought among ourselves over land, over resources, over ideas that seem so small now. We had not yet learned that we were one people united by our humanity. He spread his arms wide. You taught us that lesson. By making us your common enemy, you made us one. Every human who lives now carries the memory of what you did to our home. Every human child grows up knowing that they must fight for the future of their species. You created the very thing you feared most. He lowered his arms and straightened his uniform. I did not come here to ask your permission. I came here to tell you what is about to happen, and to give you one chance. One chance, the representative buzzed with confusion. Surrender, General said simply. Release all human prisoners. Withdraw your forces from our solar system. Allow us to rebuild what you destroyed. Return the artifacts you stole from our museums and libraries. Do this, and we will show you something that you have never shown any species you conquered. We will show you mercy. Laughter began to spread through the council again, but it died quickly. There was something in the humans' eyes that killed the amusement before it could take hold. They had seen that look before, in the eyes of wounded animals that refuse to die. And if we refuse, the High Speaker asked. General was quiet for a long moment. When he answered, his voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried to every ear in the chamber. Then we will come for you, not today, not tomorrow, but soon. We will strike from shadows. We will appear where you least expect us. We will turn your own weapons against you. And we will not stop until every species here answers for what was done to humanity. We are patient. We are determined. We have taught our children to continue this fight even if we fall. And we never, ever forget. He turned and began walking back toward the doors. His footsteps were the only sound in the vast chamber. Every alien watched him go in stunned silence. Some had lived for thousands of years and had never witnessed anything like this moment. When he reached the doors, he paused and looked back over his shoulder. You invaded our home, he said one final time. Now, for the first time in your long history, you will learn what that means. You will learn what happens when humanity fights not for conquest, not for glory, but for survival, for our children, for our future, for every human who died looking up at alien ships and wondering why. The doors closed behind him. For a long time, no one in the council chamber spoke. The High Speaker sat slowly back in his throne, his four hands trembling slightly. The representatives exchanged rapid electronic communications. The huddled together, their mandibles clicking nervously. Even the ancient, who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, stood perfectly still. Finally, one of the gaseous spoke in its whispering voice. We should have studied them more carefully. We should have understood what kind of species they truly were before we attacked. It would not have mattered, the High Speaker replied quietly. He stared at the closed doors with something new in his ancient eyes. It took the other council members a moment to recognize the emotion. It was fear. 12 hours later, the attacks began. Across 400 star systems, human soldiers emerged from hiding. They struck with precision that should have been impossible. They fought with courage that explanation. And they won. The war for humanity's freedom had begun. And across the stars, those who had thought themselves masters discovered a simple truth that humans had known for their entire history. There is no force in the universe more dangerous than people fighting for their home.